ambulance drivers that work the graveyard shifts. So it's been a very positive type of program. I did want to touch on one thing with this. There will be a special flyover this Thursday over the hospital, approximately 1 o'clock. There'll be a couple of planes from March Airfield, so we would encourage you to take your American flag and proudly display it out there whenever you, about 1 o'clock, go out on your porch and wave it. The planes should be able to see a lot of people. If you want to gather down by the hospital, we're meeting at the library parking lot. Social distancing is recommended and hopefully will be adhered. And I do need a couple of people to help me. We have a large flag that we want to display there as well. Our next slide that we'd like to talk about is our July 2nd meeting that will be our next training with Paul Webb. This is some tremendous NLP training, and we encourage you to register early. As you can see, for members by the 31st of May, there'll be no cost. Non-members should say $25 for members from June 1st on. And of course, non-members, there's a different pricing. The next one is a slide for our Coffee with the Entrepreneur, which the next one will be June 8th. And we want you to go ahead and put that on your calendar. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and actually start with today's program. It's 8 o'clock. Can we go right to the slide for the chat and the mute? So there's a couple of things that we'd like to talk to you about real quick is in regards to the chat room. If you've got questions, if you'd like to go ahead and put in the chat, you'll see it where you can type in your questions. Later, we will go ahead and ask those questions. If there is something that all of a sudden you can't hear, or there's things that are wrong with the slides and or the presentation, our staff will be able to look and see immediately on there if there's a challenge whatsoever. So that's the first thing. The next slide is, of course, to mute yourself. And that mute button is different on different tools that you're using, but it's usually on the left-hand bottom side, and you'll just have the red line right through it. So with that, we want to go ahead and get started. So good morning to everyone. Again, I'm Bobby Spiegel. I'm the President and CEO for the Corona Chamber, and I'm so honored that we get to introduce our entrepreneur. You know, each month with participation with the City of Corona in a partnership that we have, we bring different entrepreneurs to Corona and allow people to pick their brain, to hear their tidbits, to be able to walk away with various things. And you're going to be very pleased with today. I've known Mark. I've known of Mark for a number of years. And through Paul Bender-Badisha, who serves on my board, she had recommended that he be considered for one of our Entrepreneurs of the Month. Mark graduated college in 1987 in the Netherlands with a degree in architecture. He joined the Curtain Wall Trade, a Dutch subsidiary. Mark quickly moved up the company and worked there until 2005. He may be sharing all of this in his talk today, so I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but I'm going to jump forward to the time when in 2005, when he established the International Consulting Services here in Corona, California, USA. While running the ICS, Mark also established the Exterior Cladding Systems, which designs, manufactures, and installs building enclosure systems. Over the last 12 years, they've been very involved in real estate development of single-family residence, industrial office buildings, and condominium townhomes. He also established the Lux-Live.com, a company that designs and manufactures contemporary outdoor furniture. What I love about entrepreneurs is exactly what Mark speaks about and what he lives by example. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, he quickly pivoted to design, manufacture, and install protective counter shields under the brand name of C-Shields.com. This has been installed at Corona Regional Medical Center, Corona Police Department, the city of Corona, various other public buildings throughout the Inland Empire. And just last month, he installed a beautiful one here at the Corona Chamber. And when we open back up for people to come in, you'll be able to see the beautiful artwork and the design that they actually put together. Mark is married to Miriam, and they have two daughters, Amanda, who's 23, and Rosanna, 21. Mark can be reached later on. There'll be a slide up, I think, but I'll give you his number and we'll type it into the chat. But his phone number is 951-712-1125 or E.M. Pasveer, Pasveer at icsinc-usa.com. Mark has got a lot of wisdom to share. I don't want to take too much more time, but I just want you to all welcome. Please welcome our entrepreneur for this month, Mark Pasveer. Mark, take it away.
Thank you, Bobby. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me okay?
Perfect. Yes.
Okay. I'm going to start sharing my screen here. Hopefully everybody's got their, can you guys see the damping cup of coffee on the screen?
Yes, it's right there.
So that means we're off and running. Very good. Bobby, thank you for the opportunity to participate in this event. And as you mentioned, I'm looking to walk you guys through a little bit of my past and present professional experience and activities and businesses that we have been able to set up and still have going as of today. So with that, family first, always, is one of the mottos. So this is our family. These are mostly recent pictures. We love the outdoors. We love hiking, running, being active. We're blessed that we're all able to do that here in Southern California. For us, where it all started was in the Netherlands. Small country up in the mid-northern part of Europe, 17 million people total. That's it. Probably same size as the greater LA area, if that. North to south is 2.5, 3 hours by car. But a lot of good things come from Holland. Most of the things people know, the tulips, the windmills. Look at the bikes here at the bottom. That's a common thing in Holland. Cheese markets, and here on the left top, the fight against water. Holland is known for its fight against the water for the simple reason that Holland and the Netherlands, which is the same thing, is below sea level, a couple of feet below sea level. So at many occasions, that is an ongoing fight. A little bit of a fun fact in Holland, if you was something that I always had an argument about with our kids here. To say, hey, take your bike to school. So no, we want you to drop us off. You need to, that's what a lot of kids do. Well, here's a picture of a bike station, a bike storage station at the train station in Holland. So go figure. This is how people move around there. In Holland, I moved around a couple times for work. My dad was Coast Guard, and so spent most of my time in the southeastern part of Holland, where we had a pretty good time, pretty good youth. Some of the so I'm going to go through a couple of quotes that I kind of live by and preach to my team that I work with. Some of them you learn right away, some of them you learn later. This is one that I feel is very applicable. Marry the right person. This will determine 80% of your happiness. After obtaining my degree, I started to work for a company called Scheldebouw. they were a company in Holland working in exterior building enclosure, glass, metal panels, whatever you see on the outside of monumental projects. And that's kind of what this company worked on. And after an initial period of working in the headquarters, going through various departments, I kind of volunteered to go out in the field and work on actual projects. This one was one of my first projects on site in The Hague in Holland, and was a pretty good experience. And I put a quote on here that I now, so many years later, look back on and say, look, when you're in your 20s, you really think you know everything, but you actually don't. And I see some of the 20-year-old guys, 20-year young guys in our company come in and have a similar attitude, and I like it if people are aggressive, if they want to push their opinion, but experience comes with time. In a lot of the time. 1993 started to expand out of the Netherlands. This was still working for that same company. Company took on projects in London, started up working in Berlin. So the first period of working in London was basically commuting. As you see on the map, it's not that far. It's a flight from here to San Jose. It's the same as it is a flight from Amsterdam to London. We did that. I did that for about a year and a half, literally commuting back and forth. And then in 1994, we physically moved to Berlin, Germany. If you recall, 1989 is when the wall came down in Berlin. And so when that whole area, the whole Berlin area was in the center of, I actually will quickly skip to that step. So the whole Berlin area, if you look at that red line around the city, that was the wall, the physical wall that was built around the city. And at that time, people had to go through checkpoints, checkpoint Charlie being the most important one. But of course, after November 89, all of that disappeared. It became one open country. And there was a significant amount of work to be done, mostly in the former east part of Berlin that had been, neglected to a certain extent. So when we got there in 1994, there was a ton of work going on. And we had the opportunity to take on pretty monumental projects. But it was also a tough time for both the people from West Germany as well as East Germany. The people from East Germany now finally had access to all those luxury products and luxury articles, but they couldn't afford it. The people from West Germany were happy that the wall was open, but they were paying dearly with taxes and other means to pay for getting the rest of the eastern part of the country caught up. So that in the time frame that we were there, there was this mentality that both East and West Berlin people were saying, hey, how about we build another wall, only 5 foot higher, because this ain't working. But eventually it all worked through. It's a fantastic city. I highly recommend it as a place to visit in Europe. What they did is after the wall was torn down, they put these cobblestones in the street as kind of remembering where the wall was. So the full outline of the wall is still there, and it's kind of marked like this. Anyway, that was a quick sidestep. So here are some of the projects we worked on in Berlin. This one was in the middle of the former eastern part of Berlin. Here was a project that we worked on in London, Broadgate, pretty significant project. And then in 1997, our oldest Amanda was born. Here she is on a picture, obviously, many, many years later. She's currently, she's about to graduate with a master's in mild to moderate special education, and she is teaching at a middle school in Colton. That is, she is, you know, remotely teaching these days, but hopefully being able to get back soon. We continued the journey from Berlin, Germany, and the next one was a big one. With an 8-week-old baby, we moved to the other side of the world, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, in 1997. Still all for the same company that started opening up offices throughout the world. And initially, I was tasked with setting up and managing kind of the field operations, and later taking on a role as more general operations for all of Malaysia. And that eventually turned into getting involved in projects that the group was doing within the greater Southeast Asia region. One of the most important things I learned around that in that period is that, it's a given, but not every time and everyone appreciates it at the time, that time is the world's single most valuable resource. There is no price tag that one can put on time. Time, if it's spent, if it's gone, it cannot be recovered ever, especially in construction with timelines and completion date. That is a critical element. Some of the projects that we got involved in, they started growing. This was my first participation in the construction of a real skyscraper, 100+ stories in Kuala Lumpur. And again, our role with the company was all of the exterior that you see on this building. So all this paneling, all this glass, all this big helicopter pad, all the panels that go around that were part of our scope. Projects like these easily take 2 to 3 years, start to finish, from early design to prototypes, modeling, testing, and then eventually it'll get installed on the building. Other buildings we did is the Securities Commission in Kuala Lumpur. This one was also unique of its kind. Obviously the shape is unique, but this was also the first project that had a double layer of glass. So that layer of green glass that you see on the outside is just the outer skin, and there's a 5-foot gap. And then you have another wall on the inside. Something you see, we see coming up more. It's basically a cavity that is controlling climate, and as such, helping save a lot of energy within the building. But it's an upfront expense, quite costly. Project involvement, as I mentioned, started to include other areas of the Southeast Asian market within the group. They're not all architecturally that great. This was a pretty boring building, if you want to call it that way, I think personally. In Singapore. Singapore was, from where we lived in Kuala Lumpur, was a 3.5-hour drive. So that was a frequent trip. Another project that we participated in or assisted in with design work was Taipei 101. This, at the time that this building was going up, it was the highest building in the world in Taiwan. And as you can see how this thing is towering above, literally, physically towering above the rest of the city. That was a very challenging project. Another project that we participated in was the Hong Kong project. This one was, I think, in one of the Angelina Jolie films, or some Spider-Man film of some sort. And a very important lesson learned as part of the quality control that the company had introduced was do it right the first time, every time. It's easier said than done. And obviously, that's not always going to work. Mistakes are made. And that's okay to a certain extent. But after that, the philosophy was don't make that mistake again and look ahead in what you can do to avoid any mistakes. Our youngest daughter, Rosanna, was born in Kuala Lumpur in 1999. And she's currently a junior at California Polytechnic University, Cal Poly Pomona, and she's pursuing a degree in psychology. It's kind of funny when she, when in school, she has to say, where are you from? Where are you born? And she says, yeah, I'm born in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And people look at her like, what? How is that even possible? You don't look like anything. But they challenge her with it sometimes. In 1998, the market started to crash in China. The Asian crisis, as it was called. It was okay for the first year, but towards the end of 99, it really became somewhat of a dire situation. Construction came to a halt, and so we moved and packed up again. From Malaysia, we went to Dubai, United Arab Emirates. But that was a very short stay. We barely unpacked our suitcases. Still, work was slow in there as well. And at the same time, the professional environment in that area, I didn't care for it. It was a lot of corrupt type of approach. It wasn't so much what you know, it's more who you know. And in addition to that, it was way too hot. It's crazy to be in that place. So as the company was expanding into the Americas, we moved to East Coast of the United States. That was January 2000, from 120 degrees in the desert to 10 degrees at East Coast USA. Bit of a shocker. Started essentially doing the same thing as we did in Malaysia. Build up, start setting up operations with a small group of people. The company had pretty deep pockets, went public on the stock market and grew exponentially. And so their philosophy was build it and they will come. We'll get the work. And that happened. We did get the work, plenty of work. I was in New York a lot, working on projects. This was one of them, Western New York at Times Square. Again, one can argue about the taste and the architecture, but it's a landmark project for sure. Another big one in New York City, Bank of America, towering out pretty high above some of the other buildings. Also did some work in the southern part of the East Coast, Miami. Very unique requirements for projects over there, where you have the hurricane, the flooding requirements. I only learned at that time that the first, I believe it is the first 12 foot of any building in Miami that is in close proximity to the coast needs to have a complete watertight exterior wall. So basically you're building an aquarium. You're not building just a building enclosure, but you're building an aquarium. Summary of some other projects in New York, Hearst Tower, also quite a landmark. And then as the company got established on the East Coast, new project opportunities came about on the West Coast. That's where we're going to get a little closer to where we are right now. I was the first one volunteering to head out to the West Coast because that snow, the snow is nice, but when it starts in October and it finishes in April, that's a bit long for me. So I was happy to move out west. One of the first projects that we worked on is the downtown LA Walt Disney Concert Hall. With this was Frank Gehry is the architect. Pretty amazing building that, as of today, is still in car ads and everything. This was really a treat to be involved in a project of this scale. And as we realized that there is also a presence on that there is a market on the West Coast, we said, okay, the company decided, hey, let's set up a separate headquarters for the West Coast. And I was kind of tasked with setting it up, organizing it, getting it up and running, and looking for the ideal place. And so involved a couple of brokers, looking at industrial facilities. And so we ended up in Corona. And I still remember the first time, this was 2002, that we came here. I was staying in the Iris. It was called something else at that time, but it was 10 o'clock in the morning. The snow was on the mountains. The 91 freeway was zooming. There was no traffic jam whatsoever. It all looked great. If only I would have woken up a couple hours and realized that the 91 doesn't ever flow. Then we probably could have ended up going somewhere else, but at the end, you know, it's give and take. We are primarily a manufacturing facility, so there is not a whole lot of travel. But we established in Corona, took on several more projects with the company, Cedar Sinai Medical Center in LA, San Francisco Federal Building. Quite a unique project with all that gray stuff you see there is stainless steel perforated panels that open up, really fancy stuff. LAC, USC Medical Center in Los Angeles, we got involved in. We also sidestepped two projects in Hawaii. Really tough market to operate in, but we were able to get these two condo towers out of the ground and produced. And at that time, you know, I kind of reached a point that, you know, you have a nice title with the company, you have a good salary, but at the end, you get your wages, you have the fancy title, but you end up with zero profit of the multi-million dollars that are reported by this big corporate entity. So I made the decision at that time to leave the corporate environment and start on my own. Ultimately, you know, you take one step back in hopes to take 2 or 3 steps forward later on. And no better place to start than in the land of opportunity. And I say this to everybody that I talk to. You know, and we have today's political environment, you know, doesn't matter which side you're on, it's a little hostile here and there, but still from a business point of view, this is the land of opportunity. If you think that taxes in America are high, wait until you go to Europe. Wait until you go to where as you start to earn a little bit of money that you're going to get taxed 55, 60, 65%. I mean, think about it. What's the point even in doing business? Also in Europe, the rules, the red tape that you have to get started. I'm not saying none of it exists here, but it's manageable. And the opportunities that are provided within the USA, I think, are unique in the world. And I can totally relate to the statement that USA is the land of opportunity. So as I started my own company, there was kind of 3 main items I consider as a prerequisite that I was going to stick to in whatever I do. One is provide the best or better quality than your competitor, provide the best or better service than your competitor, and own up to your mistakes. Now, for most of us in any type of business, unless we're Elon Musk or Steve Jobs or one of those guys, that you have a one-off product that only can be made and sold by you, we are all dealing with commodities, and we have to set ourselves as, we have to separate ourselves from the competition in one way or another. And for me, these three items are the best way to do that. And this is what I'm preaching through my staff as well. So we established International Consulting Services, our own first company. Literally, physically took a mortgage on the house. That was still easy then. Took a step back, rented a small building, and went to work. We had I still had from my past a lot of contacts with domestic and international architects. And pretty soon we were able to drum up a significant amount of work. And our role in here was working with architects and developers in helping them design the exterior building enclosure of their buildings. And as I said, we got involved from the get-go in some pretty large buildings, mostly on the East Coast, New York. I haven't been there in the past couple months, but normally I'm at least 1 week out of the month in New York, or every 4th or 5th week we spend time in New York with our projects. We have a small office there as well. Another small twin tower project. I say small because it's only 30 floors compared to New York. That's okay. Some renovations we've been involved in New York. We've also been working with international architects. So this was a project, the Doha International Airport in Qatar, that we worked on with an architect from LA. And this is a current ongoing project in Lower Manhattan, an 80-story tower that is overlooking from this particular angle. You don't see it on the picture, but if you go a little higher up on the building, you can see the Statue of Liberty in this building. Some quite unique projects going on. And in that process, in working and consulting with these architects, we got asked numerous times, hey, we know that you've been working for a curtain wall contracting or a glazing company before. So in addition to the consulting, how about you guys take on more of a role and get back into the design and manufacturing? And it's something I didn't want to do initially because it would mean a major headache. When I say headache, you need to, you need a building, you need facilities, you need equipment, you need personnel. And whereas the consulting angle was relatively easy, I could manage it with 1 or 2 people. But at the end, with multiple architects and contractors asking for our input on some projects, we went for it. And there was this one project that opened up the door, which is this one. And believe it or not, this was our first project. It was ginormous. It is the Palomar Medical Center. Everything you see on this job, everything you see on the outside, all the glass, the different layers, the sunscreens, we did all the design and manufacturing for all of that, working with subcontractors, some from overseas. But this was as it turns out later, this was our stepping stone that we could have not dreamt of. Now, we got this job in 2007, and that was right before the market crashed. And so from this job, from start to finish, took about 4.5 years. And it was the only job we did with our company. Just one job, this one. And it pushed us right through the recession, and it made us do very well. So we came out on the other side of the recession, booming. And it goes to say that sometimes you got to have a little bit of luck. And that's for sure. The timing was right. And as part of the process, we ended up always calculating risk and reward. It's again a key issue I live by. Keep calculating your reward or keep calculating your risk and keep managing it until you're done. Jobs like these can easily run out of hand if things don't fit, if things are not manufactured properly. As a result of this first job that we were able to do successfully, we landed a couple more with the same construction teams that we worked on. This was a project up north, Palo Alto. Again, most of what you see on the outside is what we ended up designing and manufacturing. Large areas of glass wall. Here you see like vertical glass fins spanning between floors on a catwalk, some fancy stuff. We've also gotten involved in custom homes. Again, everything high-end quality, high-end finishes to set ourselves aside. Some other projects we've worked on, Arcadia High School, stamps.com, and this is one of our current projects that we're working on, the design and manufacturing of some highly customized building enclosure systems for the new Google facility. These guys are going all out on a central utility plant with photovoltaic integrated in the exterior of the building to make it completely, essentially a self-sufficient building is their ultimate goal. So we had a little bit of a side gig moving into real estate development. You know, sometimes that happens. You don't plan it, but it happens. So at the time when I was still with the previous employer and we did those projects in Hawaii, this was at a time that the market was booming, and we were able to flip a couple of apartments during our frequent stays and trips to Hawaii as these projects were going on. And that side gig kind of kept going. We ended up doing remodels, started to get involved in ground up single family residences, and eventually the building below is where we're still in as of today, acquired our first commercial real estate project. I see him. Everybody can still hear me okay? I got a message that was unstable, but I guess we keep going. One of the bigger, or actually so far the biggest real estate development that we took on was 62 condominiums in Riverside. This was a ground up development. So established, you know, fully with our own resources. We built this, and currently we still own all of it. We're holding on to it as rentals, and that is all managed in-house. In fact, my wife is the lucky person to deal with all the 62 families that have their issues and problems and working from home and so on, but she's doing a good job. Eventually, you know, an important lesson is when you're starting to build homes and stuff, make sure you never build your own home first so that you learn from your mistakes on somebody else's or on a rental. But eventually we ended up building up our own house. This is what we call our dream house. We're still living in it. We're still living in it. We're enjoying it. And it's a real cool place to hang out. We also built in 2014 in Mount mountain home in Big Bear. That's where we spend most of our weekends in the winter. And again, we kind of got this out of the ground in about eight to 10 months, and it's a real cool hangout. Currently, we have another project that we just acquired last year, 22 condo townhomes in Riverside on Jefferson. So that project is going underway, but of course we have a little bit of a slowdown with the whole COVID situation. So we're having to take a step back a little bit and regroup, hoping for the market to settle, get a little more stable, and until we get the banks to get commit again. Because that's the challenge right now. Nobody wants to, commit money in projects if there is an uncertain outlook. Another thing we established in 2018 was we mentioned it earlier, and a sidestep into creating and designing furniture. The luxury, we're aiming a high-end segment of the market here, so we're very focused on quality. If you want to sell to the people in Newport and Hollywood, there better be no scratches or nothing that they can complain about, because they will. And so we come up with different product lines, product series, using a variety of finishes that are pretty unique, pretty high-end. We do custom assemblies, planters, a variety of activities. Needless to say, in this market, in the COVID market, as we want to call it, there is not a lot of activity in this area, for the simple reason that this is on nobody's priority list, is to buy luxury furniture at this point in time. We did a 100-piece furniture series for Eagle Glen for all of their outdoor areas. We incorporated their logos in it, as you see here. And again, that's another thing we work with, making super high-end sample material finishes, so that when we go and visit these customers, they really feel that they're special, because we're spending the time and money to make these kind of samples and leave them with packages and samples that are impressive. The one thing I was always inspired when you buy a product from Apple, right? I mean, the box is so nice. You just want to keep the box. You put it on the shelf somewhere because it's such a nice box. That's kind of the philosophy that I wanted to display here, that you impress people with anything and everything in terms of quality. And then here we are. This happened, and it's still here with us. So what we did, as we have the resources and tooling and materials, we were fortunate enough to have to be working on one or two essential projects. So we had a LAX airport, which was deemed essential, for which our team had to continue working. But at the same time, we stuck our heads together and say, what can we do to, number one, prevent layoffs, two, help our local community by using resources and materials that we have. And we immediately, one of the things that came to mind is we saw all these shields go up, all these protection shields at supermarkets and stuff like that. And really, those were flimsy, and for all the right reasons had to be put up real quick. But we thought, what if we give this a little more design? What if we make this a permanent feature? Because the social distancing is going to be with us for a while, whether it is 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, or a year, or forever. But in some locations, people are not going to be looking for a piece of flimsy plexiglass that is screwed onto a counter. that everybody can see is a temporary measure. So we reached out to a couple places and say, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we're offering. And one of the first places we reached out to was Corona Regional. Hopefully it's a place we don't want to see, but in the event you do end up at the emergency room of Corona Regional, you'll see that they have now a nice enclosure that is plexiglass. You know, we incorporated like pass-through openings, custom. We incorporate their logo, custom lettering, doors, etc. And we donated this to the hospital. We donated the time, the material, the labor, everything, because we wanted to help them out, and we wanted to at the same time, you know, start to get this product going. And it was a win-win. We got a real nice letter from the CEO, and pretty quickly as we started to reach out to other companies and other entities, we got some interest. And again, the philosophy was the same: set yourself aside by doing more, by doing better, by doing different. So we started incorporating logos. So City of Corona, we did Corona PD. Here you can see, you know, we engraved their logo. This was a fairly simple thing. We made the screens for their cubicles to be extended so that they could maintain their 6-foot social distance and work there without masks. But it was a nice little touch to make the logo in. City Hall is another one that we did. So here you see the screens installed, and this is kind of part of the process. So we go there, we measure, we make drawings, we show where their monitors are, how it's all going to align. And then once we get confirmation, yep, we're all good to go. Then we move along, and this was installed just last week. Same for the utilities payment counter at Corona City Hall. Same thing. This one was a little more complex because it had a lot of ins and outs, but we made it really, I think, clean looking, and they're pretty happy about it. We did, as well we said, we did Corona Chamber of Commerce. You see their logo on the left top corner. We did Redlands PD. We're currently working with Pomona Valley Medical Hospital. This is another one we're doing. Part of our virtual process is, you know, I ask people, hey, send me a picture, and we'll draw in there what we think, what is the best arrangement for your screens, and we'll go back and forth a couple of times, and then we eventually go in production. So with that, that's kind of in a nutshell where we are as of now, hoping that we are pretty soon going to be able to go back to normal. And you know, our intent with the whole Sea Shield business is, it was never for it to become a permanent business. Now, if something more comes out of it, that's great, but it wasn't our goal. It isn't our goal. But so far, we've been able to keep all of our employees employed. We're not looking at doing any layoffs, and that was kind of the deal we made. So with that, I want to kind of ask, you know, thanking you for your time and attention, and opening up the floor for any questions, if there is any.
Yes, Mark, thank you so much. And can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, excellent. So, you know, you're truly the entrepreneur of entrepreneurs. And with our historical background of being the lemon capital of the world, the Corona Chamber constantly tells people we make lemonade out of lemons, and you absolutely have done that. You had a lot of different slides up on little slogans and different things. I captured a couple of them, but I did want to make sure, you know, you say, hire good people and do follow up with them and make sure that they're accountable. Can you just share a little bit more on that?
Yeah, actually, I think I think you picked up good on that. It was on the screen, but I didn't mention it. So number one, you need good people around you to get the job done. But every profession is different, and I always believe in giving people freedom to develop themselves. But at the same time, it's still my company. It's still my decision. So I'm going to say I'm going to trust you, but I'm going to verify that we do this right. So when we are making important decisions, come see me. We'll quickly brainstorm it. We'll make sure that we are on the right track. And that's what I mean with trust, but verify. And another thing I always talk about to my employees is if you have a problem, before coming to me, think of prioritize your 3 best solutions to the problem. Chances are you're not going to even come to me anymore because in the process, you're already going to figure it out. Because I had people walk in the door like, I got a problem with this. I got a problem with that. So guys, I mean, we're paying you guys to be part. I'm not just paying you to present me a problem. I'm also paying you to present me a solution. So I don't care. I don't mind to work with you on that, but the initiative needs to come from you.
Excellent. So when you located to Corona, you had other communities in Southern California you could have picked. I know that the weather is a huge factor for people versus the East Coast, but can you pinpoint a couple of things that just brought you to Corona initially and why the company chose to pick Corona?
Well, we were primarily our business is manufacturing. So the Inland Empire came up pretty quick as a favorable location. The first project in coming to the West Coast was Disney Concert Hall in LA, and at that point, when we did that project, we had an office in Santa Monica. Now, one can imagine Santa Monica is not the most favorable place to set up manufacturing facilities. So we looked up going further north or going further south, and not being familiar with the area, I relied a lot on the brokers that I had looking around. But the feedback that I was receiving from the Inland Empire was favorable, and I wanted to still stay as close as possible to LA as we could because we had quite a few projects going on there, and that's what kind of narrowed it down to Corona.
Excellent. Excellent. I've got some other questions, but I think Linda has some in the queue. So Linda, do you want to go ahead and ask those questions?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I have a 2-part question from Don Williamson. Has your family enjoyed traveling around the world, and have they found it difficult to remain in one location for an extended period of time?
The answer is yes. We did a lot of travel, and when the kids were still young. Most of our travel, in fact, until we got to the East Coast of the United States, the kids were 6 and 4, somewhere in that. Or when we ended up on the West Coast of the United States, they were 6 and 4, and I can say, me personally, I absolutely enjoyed the traveling and seeing other things, and so did my wife. Initially, she wasn't a fan, but I think looking back on it, we said it's the best thing we could have done. But you are absolutely right. As you reach a point that your kids are going to school, then it's time to settle. And it just so happened that happened in the time that we arrived in Corona. And as you've seen, we've been in quite a few places, but this is the longest we've ever been. And honestly, I talk about it with my family in Holland, and I'm already told them, I said, guys, I'm going to see you guys once a year, but for us, this is it. We're living here now. We're not heading back to Europe when we're done. We obviously we have too much going on, too much build up for it to leave behind. And in addition to that, I mean, you know, one can say whatever you want, but this is still one of the best places to live as far as I'm concerned.
Excellent, excellent. Linda, you have another question perhaps? You're on mute, so.
Stephanie has a question from Facebook.
Yes, good.
Can't hear you,
A
Steph.
comment from one of our Facebook. You guys can't hear me?
Now we can.
Okay, great. So we have a comment from one of our Facebook watchers. This is from Kathy Armstrong. She is a local manufacturer here in Corona as well. Her comment is that your story is very inspiring. Thank you. What a great success story, and so realistic about different challenges with working for a corporation versus your own business. Thank you for your donations to the community. It makes such a big difference. We love working in Corona and with our chamber.
That's a nice comment. Thanks, Kathy. Linda, do you have one more question that's in the queue? I've got a couple here that I've got, so.
Okay, we have Paul Bender asking a question. Paul Bender, can you go ahead and ask your question?
Hi, good morning, everybody. Hi, Mark. Mark, I just looked back on my history and I met you guys in 2007. And at the time I was so impressed because I was a fairly new immigrant and absolutely was so impressed with both yours and Miriam's entrepreneurship and how quickly you jumped into doing businesses. So my question is, how do you develop somebody? I only have one business, but how do you develop the courage or guts to set up so many businesses? And do you ever get scared? Because are you human, Mark?
I agree with you that it is not always beneficial to have too many irons in the fire because you can only devote so much attention to one thing. And so what that means is you need to team up with other people. You need to team up with business partners, you need to hire good people to keep these things going. And that is always a leap of faith, because when you are a business owner, you look at things different than an employee does. Mm-hmm. And I always encourage my guys, and I know there's more than two types of people, but black and white, I see there's two types of people. There is the people that say, I'm perfectly comfortable working from 8 to 5, close the door behind me at 5 o'clock, and I want to have nothing to do with work. That's one type. Then you have another type that says, you know what? I have an interest to grow. I want to do more. I want to be part of something. And those are the people that you say, okay, I'll give you an opportunity. A lot of the approach that I have in my companies is profit sharing. So guys, if we are all successful, we share in the success. And so I'm a great believer, as long as there is for everybody the motivation to keep going and keep pushing, it's going to help everybody out. I mean, you can't be greedy. As I said, with the whole COVID thing coming up, the first thing we did, that was even before the PPP loans and all came out, I set the employees together and said, look, guys, we got this far together, and I'm going to guarantee you guys for the next 3 months, there will be no layoffs. But we're going to have to move some stuff around. We're going to have to get creative, and that's how we're going to do this. So I think it's a two-way street. You don't build it all up one time from scratch. It takes time. Mm-hmm. And believe me, I didn't post or didn't put the slides in this presentation of the things that didn't work out, which obviously not everything is always a slam dunk. So that's the reality, I think.
Awesome, thank you. And Mark, and your team that came out, when you first came out to measure, and then you had your team come out to remeasure and kind of make sure that everything's in place. And then when they came out to install, very professional, very customer oriented, and the product is absolutely exceptional. So I thank you again for the shield that you put in here for our safety of our staff, as well as the visitors that will be coming through the door. I had a question in regards to having the multiple businesses. What do you look for as far as building space to operate your businesses? Are you all under one umbrella of one building that you're in, or do each of the businesses or multiple of them go into different areas?
We are primarily in one location. Of course, the real estate projects, as they like that, for instance, that 62 condominium complex, that one is has its own staff, its own management. But most of the what I call the operating companies are currently under one room, but we are getting tight. Just before the whole COVID situation started, I was already looking at other spaces, but temporarily put the brakes on it. But I definitely can see us at a point that we are going to have to go to a bigger space. Now, again, with a lot of the activities we do from a construction point of view, we use the same materials, we use the same equipment. It's just applied to a different product. So we're going to look to continue to keep things under one roof, but at the same time, pretty soon we're going to need a bigger space.
Excellent. Linda or Stephanie, do you have any other questions that you have in the queue?
No more questions, but Mark, I would really like to thank you for being such a great speaker. We really learned a lot today.
Thank you for having me.
And do any of the people that are online, if they unmute themselves, if they have any questions that they would like to ask versus just typing them into the chat? We're perfect on time right now, so this is excellent, but I did want to give the opportunity for that. Let's go ahead. Mark, again, thank you so much. I'd like to just do a shameless plug for a couple of events coming up. Linda, if you could share your screens again with the different events that we do have. So this coming Wednesday at 12:05, we have a training for different contracts that are going to be done through the SBIR and NAVSE out here at the Corona base. And that will be at 12:05. The bit.ly is on there, the CCC-SBIR. Next slide. And that is our Good Morning Corona breakfast with our district attorney, sponsored by Riverside Medical Clinic. Again, we would ask you to register as quick as possible. The next slide. So this was a pretty successful event. The first one was last week, and this one will be coming up on May 19th. It's our mixer, and it is pants optional social hour starting at 3:30 to 4:30. And if you've got questions, please connect with Desiree at mychamber.org. Next. So there is a huge thing going on with COVID-19. And one of the local ways to be involved is through our Corona Chamber Foundation. We partnered with a lady by the name of Mary Barnett, who brought us the flag program, originally started on the East Coast. And so this is the flag of Corona. But if you want information on it, text FLAG, F-L-A-G, to 71441. Multiple ways to get involved. I will like to just say that on the 14th, on Thursday at 1 o'clock, March Airfield will have 2 different planes flying over to do a flyover for the healthcare workers. We're about the 6th place in line on that. So about 105 to 110, the flyover will happen. If you want to just be out front of your building and wave an American flag, or if you want to meet us at the library at 6th and Main on the back side, we're going to go up towards Corona Regional and wave to the various healthcare workers and during the flyover, maintaining the social distancing though. And then in July, we have our next speaker, the next series from Paul Webb, and this is on NLP. And we do encourage people to register in the month of May to receive the best discount. Next slide. And of course, our next Coffee with the Entrepreneur will be on Monday, June 8th. We encourage everyone to plug in and be part of it. I believe that that's the last slide. Is that correct? So on behalf of the Corona Chamber, we just want to say thank you again, Mark. Paul Binder, thank you for recommending Mark. If any of you have some recommendations of different entrepreneurs, please let us know. We would love to have them featured on this. It is recorded, and we will hopefully be able to get this out to everyone that was not able to be part of it today. But again, Mark, on behalf of the Corona Chamber, we just want to extend our sincere thank you for being part of the business community and for being involved. Yes, someone had a question?
This is Jason Scott from Corona City Council, and I just wanted to say to you, Mark, I really appreciated your presentation. I learned a lot, not only about you, your company, but all the things you've been engaged in. I want to tell you that your home up in Big Bear, I love that place. I love the design on it. Additionally, I want to extend appreciation to you for volunteering to do what you did at the Corona Regional Hospital to protect the employees, to protect patients, and reaching out to help our community. I like that and love that. And then finally, thank you for helping out our city employees and protecting them and the people that come there at the 3 different locations. So thank you again. I really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Jason. Thank you, Jason. Mark, any parting comments here?
No, again, thank you for allowing me the opportunity.
You bet you. Well, on behalf of the City of Corona and the Chamber of Commerce, we just appreciate everyone that's been able to plug in and that will be watching this later on. So we say thank you, and we'll be in touch with you in the near future. Have a great day.
Thank you.